You close your eyes, you see a comfortable house of your own, two cars in the garage, a partner in marriage, kids playing in the backyard. The fruits of your hard work surround you. And then you wake up because the American dream is exactly that, a dream the average millennial will never live. In American society, as the country has transitioned from an industrial economy in the mid-20th century to a service sector-based economy in the 21st century, college education has become an increasingly crucial part of success in America. A problem has arisen in that college has become unaffordable for far too many. According to Bryant 2023, when adjusting for inflation by using 2020-2021 dollars, we can see that the average cost of tuition and fees for undergraduates has tripled from 1980 to the modern day, from about $4,000 to nearly $14,000. Many are unable to pay this cost up front, and with a college degree essential to being competitive in the job market, Americans are forced to take out student loans. Over time, this money has added up, and according to Forbes, the federal student loan portfolio currently totals more than $1.6 trillion, owed by about 43 million borrowers. These numbers become more human when you realize that the math comes out to approximately $37,000 per debtor on average, and many debtors are six figures in the red. Interest only makes the debts bigger over time, and many are left struggling to pay their living expenses under the burden of debt, making survival imperative and prosperity a distant dream. Unprecedented action is necessary to solve this societal crisis, and for that reason, I affirm the resolution. The United States federal government should forgive all federal student loan debt. This proposal would mean that the federal government, through legislation passed by the U.S. Congress and signed by the president, would eliminate all federal student loan debt by covering the cost. According to the U.S. Department of Education, a federal student loan is money borrowed from the federal government to help pay for your education that must be repaid with interest. So private loans would be outside the scope of this proposal. While this plan certainly has a high initial cost, it can provide massive economic benefits, both on microeconomic and macroeconomic levels. On a personal level, for tens of millions of student debtors, the proposal would free them from mandatory monthly student loan payments. According to Banerjee 2021, this would allow for debtors to have financial stability in paying for the cost of living, and perhaps have extra money to make a down payment on a house or pursue an advanced degree. It is important to remember that college is not always a successful venture, and that many never complete their degree but still have to pay for the college classes they took. These individuals cannot access the lucrative careers they were investing into and are often left in financial despair. Even those with degrees to show for their crushing student loan debt, jobs are not an assurance, with Miller 2022 discussing how the cutthroat nature of the job market means many qualified candidates don't even get responses to their applications, leaving them unemployed, struggling to support themselves, let alone pay off their student loans. These burdens often cause anxiety and depression, according to Novak 2023, further emphasizing how debt cancellation is a societal benefit far deeper than a mere economic stimulus. The federal government is the only entity with the power and financial backing to uplift this burden for millions and allow them to jumpstart their lives. Nevertheless, this is not an entirely selfless endeavor for America as a country, even as I would argue that serving the people in their time of need is the government's highest purpose. According to Hansen 2023, debt cancellation could increase GDP by $100 billion a year and create millions of jobs. This seemingly unfounded causation can be explained through the lens of Keynesian economics, the theory of the namesake English economists that helped the United States fight its way out of the Great Depression and the 2008 financial crisis. The basic idea is that government spending injects a stimulus into the economy and puts more money into the pockets of individuals, in this case, student debtors. These student debtors will now have more money to spend as consumers, which will help businesses and enable them to create more jobs, which can then provide lucrative employment to more people, creating a positive feedback loop of economic growth that will benefit all Americans, not just those in debt. The American dream is dying as generation after generation seems to sink only further and further into student debt. Further, federal student loan cancellation is admittedly a bold proposal, but unprecedented change is necessary to solve the current crisis of student loan debt that is holding back tens of millions. American culture promises that hard work and a college education is the path to success, and it is time to stop breaking that promise and bring the American dream to fruition. The contracting of a new plane, the bailout of a corporation, the creation of a new housing program. We hear about government spending all the time, but it often feels abstract. They don't change the number in our bank accounts. News anchors talk of far-off millions, billions, and trillions, but they all blend together. The numbers so big that they feel small to us. Who cares? It's not my money, right? It is here that we must remind ourselves that governments are but associations of people, and that when the United States spends money, it is the money of the people collected through taxation. These far-off numbers have meaning. In recent years, discussion has emerged surrounding the crisis of student loan debt. According to Forbes, the federal student loan portfolio currently totals more than $1.6 trillion, owed by about 43 million borrowers. In light of the economic crippling of a large percentage of America by this crisis, many progressives like Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont have argued that the United States federal government should eliminate all federal student loan debt. While it may seem like a noble goal to help struggling Americans, we must remember that $1.6 trillion is a lot of money. That's 7 times the wealth of the richest man on the planet and larger than the entire Mexican economy. And if the government is going to be paying, that really just means the American taxpayers, many of whom have no student debt to be cleared, but will be fitting the bill. And with that in mind, I urge you to negate the resolution. The United States federal government should forgive all federal student loan debt. One of the biggest concerns with eliminating all federal student loan debt is the practical capacity of the United States to pay for it. According to the United States Department of the Treasury, the United States is already $33 trillion in debt, and in the last fiscal year, we have already racked up $1.7 trillion more in debt. If our government is running a massive deficit already each year, how are we supposed to pay for a new program with a $1.6 trillion price tag? And $1.6 trillion is probably just the start. It's not logical to suggest that the federal government would merely do a one-time debt payoff. That obviously seems unfair to future students and would simply allow federal student loan debt to just build up again. According to Hansen 2023, total federal student loan debt increased by $24 billion in 2022. The resolution in isolation just makes no sense and would likely have to be tied to paying off loans in perpetuity or creating free college for all, which would increase the government's bills by an incalculable amount. We must also consider the people who are going to actually be shouldering the burden of paying this massive amount of $1.6 trillion, and that group is the American taxpayers. According to Haverstock 2023, 17.4% of American adults have student debt. While it is deeply influential for a country to have 40 million people in student debt, it is obvious from these statistics that most American taxpayers, in fact, are not student debtors. It seems unjust for tens of millions of Americans who are not reaping the rewards of unpaid college educations to have to fit the bill for them. In fact, according to the Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities, individuals with college educations are expected to make, on average, $1.2 million more than those without them over their lifetimes. According to the 2020 US Census, nearly 37% of American adults over 25 have never attended college. Is it fair to ask them to pay for others to gain earning potential they themselves don't have? How about asking all of those who have paid off their student debt to pay off that of others when no one paid for theirs? The government is not an abstract entity, and when we say the United States is paying for something, we mean the federal government. But when we say the government, we really mean the taxpayers, the people of the United States. The student loan debt crisis is a major issue that's impacting a lot of Americans, but the solution is not to spend $1.6 trillion we don't have using the money of people who will never benefit. We must remember that governments are of the people and by the people, but perhaps most importantly, that they are for the people, all of them.